Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with Rocks and Stocks News. Got another of our interviews with executives from mining companies, and in this case, we have Matt Golat from I almost said it, Premier Gold, but i-80 Gold, which was the product of Premier getting bought out, and now it's i-80 Gold.
I make that mistake still sometimes there, Allan.
Yeah, well, it's such a good name. I love that Premier Gold name.
That was a good one. We had it for 15 years. So
there you go. And then it resulted in you guys, Premier getting bought out, and they spun out assets into i-80 Gold, which went public about a year and a half ago. And you guys have done some phenomenal stuff since then.
Yeah, it's been exciting. We've really grown the business and secured 3 core assets and an autoclave, and have had some tremendous exploration success, particularly at Ruby Hill, which were the results are out from today, and then at Granite Creek at the South Pacific Zone. So it's been we've been blessed with 4 new discoveries in 2022 on the Ruby Hill project alone. It's been a great year.
Well, Ewan and I were talking not long ago, and we were talking about how Granite Creek, which on its own is a world-class situation. You've got over 600 meters of strike length, thick intersections, thick continuity of high grade. You follow the geological package and the structure, and it leads you to a 25 million ounce gold mine. So the runway is big, and what you already have could be classified as a world-class asset. And that was the #1 project until Ruby Hill came along.
It's we keep calling it a Hollywood problem internally here. It's been great.
Well, that's definitely true. And then today you guys had some excellent news out. I'm really kind of flabbergasted by what Ruby Hill continues time after time to unveil. And today you had the news out that you got a 15 meter or a 12.3 meters or 12.3 grams of gold over 10.7 meters. And this was follow-up from one hole that the previous operators found underneath the Archimedes pit.
That's correct. Yeah, it was following up a 15-gram hit over 5.5 meters, and that was never followed up at all. It really opens up the structure between Ruby Deeps and the Blackjack deposit along the Blanchard Fault up to exploration, and it's about more than 600 meters between the two. So it's really exciting new target for us. It's one hole, but we will be drilling it and trying to understand what we have there. I think it really demonstrates this and the CRD and the scar and how fertile the Eureka district is and the Ruby Hill property is, and for potential for future discoveries for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. This whole Ruby Hill thing sort of started out by you guys did some drilling to the west of the Archimedes pit, and you hit Ruby Deeps. Then you followed that up with a little higher and closer to the bottom of the pit, the 426 zone. And now you're directly underneath the pit, and it looks like you've got another high grade zone.
It's been really exciting year. That's exactly right. The Ruby Deeps would be more refractory, which we'll be able to send to the autoclave that we have in the portfolio. And 426, some of it looks like it's potentially oxide mineralization, so it'd be a lot cheaper milling than an autoclave.
And it would be something that you could use your current facility at Ruby Hill to process. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's what we're looking into. So we put out a study in November looking at the Ruby Hill plant and getting it up and running as it once was. I think that was about a $10 million retrofit. And then we also did another study looking at it as retrofitting into a float plant with all the base metal material. We wanted to kind of understand what it would take to float a concentrate to ship off to a smelter somewhere. And that came in around $70 million, if I recall correctly. So having the infrastructure in site has certainly given us lots of options in how we want to forward the project to get cash flow as soon as possible and go after the highest margin tons.
And that's oxide material, so you would be able to have a very low cost, and it's got a pretty handsome grade, so that usually equals high margins and good cash flow.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
And that would kind of lead you down to the 426 zone. Or
Yep.
sorry, the Ruby Deep zone.
That's right. So we're currently permitting, we're going through the permitting process to put a ramp in from the bottom of the pit that'll take you into 426, making a left, and making a right will take you into Blackjack. So we'll be able to drill both of those off from underground. Likely we'll start those ramps later this year or early next year and get drilling and get mining as soon as possible.
You know, that's something that else that you and I have talked about in the past is, you know, you look at the Lason Curve, and usually you've got that big ramp up on exploration success, then a 7 to 10 year development discount window, and then you put it into production, you got your next big jump. You guys can narrow that, you guys have the potential to narrow that development discount window down to months to a couple of years.
Yeah, that's right. Having the infrastructure in place allow us to, certainly shorten that window, and then having the exploration success is allowing us to have sort of two cycles going at the same time to shorten that window even more. So, you've talked to you and I several times. You know, he's very much an explorationist, so we'll never stop drilling and looking for new tons and new ounces, and as we continue to build out the portfolio with the autoclave and the plant at Ruby Hill.
That brings up another point, that it's pretty unique for one company to have one world-class project, let alone multiple world-class projects that are simultaneously being moved towards development.
Yeah, certainly blessed with great projects. Our strategy has been to be focused on a great jurisdiction to permit projects, a very fertile area, which is Nevada, and we're in northern Nevada. And like Premier, we tend to look for deposits in the shadow of a headframe, is the old adage. So we are in the trends right next to major gold mining companies, looking for new deposits and developing our assets, and we continue to look in those districts to grow our portfolio even more.
And, you know, everybody sort of says that, Matt, but you guys have, you and Ewan and his team have had a long history of doing that. You did that with Wolfden. You followed that up with Premier Gold. Then you followed that up with i-80 Gold. So you guys aren't new to this party, and you've done it many times.
Yep, certainly it's been quite the ride, that's for sure.
But I mean, if you look at Granite Creek, that's got to make you guys step back a little and go, wow.
Yeah, this particularly the South Pacific zone, it's still open to the north, and we acquired more land actually with a relationship with Barrick. They sold us the section to the north of our deposit last year, so we're able to continue drilling to the north. So that's quite exciting. This year we'll be focused on driving the infrastructure or the ramp over to South Pacific zone to drill it off in a lot more detail, and hopefully start mining it later in this year and shipping ore to Nevada Gold Mines for the toll milling processing facility.
Wow. So in a matter of what, a year and a half, you've gone from sort of conceptual idea that there might be something there to a bunch of holes to show there's something there. And within another, let's say 9-10 months, starting to bring rock out of the ground.
Yeah, it's been very, very aggressive growth that we've had in the company. We were talking about the other day, and i-80's actually surpassed the market cap of Premier ever was in a matter of 18 months. So it's been quite the incredible experience for us, for sure.
So I brought up Granite Creek because I wanted to make sure everybody knows that you've got one world-class project at Granite Creek. But now it looks like you have 2 or possibly 3 at Ruby Hill alone. You've got the 426, the Ruby Deeps, now the 428, and that's all sort of on the west and underneath the pit. Then to the south of the pit, and I think that on its own stands as a potential world-class gold project. You got thick intersections of high grades that you could underground bulk mine. It would be a phenomenal story just on its own. But then to the immediate south of the pit, you found this CRD that's just off the charts. I mean, if you compare just the silver, the lead, and the zinc to other CRDs, it ranks very high for high grade. But then you've got this overprint of high grade to bonanza grade that seems to have followed the same rock packages and the same faulting at different times to create this super CRD.
Yeah, that's a really good description. So it's CRD pods as you go south towards our boundaries, what we believe to be there. High grade lead and zinc with an overprinting of gold and silver, which is it's quite interesting. If you look at some of the historic mines just on our property alone, you got the Thayer-Lindsay mine. It mined 0.43 ounces per ton, 11 ounces silver, 17 lead, and 3% zinc. You take all the base metal out of that on its own, it's still a high grade gold mine, which is, I think, it's quite interesting to your point. So what we've done is we did a bunch of geophysical work at the end of 22, following up on some Titan work that Barrick did. So we did some IP work, and we've identified some key targets south of the pit that we'll be drilling this year. And they light up just as Hilltop lights up. There's a similar target that looks like that to the south that we'll certainly be testing. So we're quite excited to see what 23 brings for exploration.
Well, before we get into the geophysics, because I saw a couple things on the geophysics that really excite me, but then to the east, you've got the Blackjack zone, a skarn, and a continuum of a CRD system. And when I show that project on Google Earth, you can actually, if you're looking to the east, you can see a big alteration zone in the side of the side of the pit. And now you've got this skarn mineralization that looks quite exceptional as well.
Yeah, you're likely seeing the graveyard stock, which we think could be a heat engine for the mineralization in the camp. It's either that or there's another zone below the pit, deep below the pit, that we think could be the heat engine. So we'll be testing that target later this year as well. So
and the skarn.
And the skarn, correct.
Okay, so now let's get on to some geophysics.
Okay.
You guys have put you had some kind of a webinar, and you showed some geophysics that is directly right underneath the Archimedes pit.
Yep.
That was very impressive. You cut down slices so you can see sort of the 500 and I think 1,000 and 1,500 meter levels. But that looks like that could be a porphyry sitting under. You're smiling because I think I'm reading old Ewan's mind there. Could be a porphyry sitting underneath all of this.
Yeah, there's something had to cause the mineralization in the district, and if you look at the historic porphyry model setups, you have distal disseminated. We've got gold deposit. You've got skarn. You've got CRD, and how much zinc versus copper indicates how close you are to the porphyry. I'm sure you know all this, and so we've got similar setups on our property, and so there is a target at depth that we will certainly drill and see if it is actually the heat engine. So we're quite excited to see what we make of that target. That could be a real game changer for us.
It would be interesting to see if copper starts coming in, because a lot of times in these systems, the farther you are away from the heat engine is where you get the zinc and the silver and the lead. And as you get closer to the heat engine, it turns into copper and gold zones.
That's right. So that's what we'll be looking for. Fingers crossed.
But then you've put out something just recently on the geophysics that's got me really excited, because so here you've got the CRD to the south of the Archimedes pit. You go about 3,000 meters away and you've got what Paycor has found at their another CRD with the same characteristics: high grade silver, lead, zinc, and an overprint of high grade to bonanza grade gold. And sitting right in between them, contained completely on your project, is a big IP anomaly that also sits right on some key faults.
That's right. That's actually Ewan's #1 target for this year. I maybe shouldn't be saying that publicly, but he's really excited about that one. It's
Well, I am too, because something pumped those two deposits.
Yeah, oh yeah, it lights up just like Hilltop does, but it's a much bigger footprint south of Hilltop that we have to drill that. So it's being permitted as we speak. So once we get permits, that'll be the first hole we drill will be into that target this year.
And so the favorable network of structures and the favorable rock packages, because you need that combination. The fluids have to make their way up. They have to have a cracks to follow. And then you want the right kind of rocks for those to then act sort of like a sponge to allow those fluids to then deposit. So that story of the faulting and the right kind of rocks continues for about another 1.5 kilometers and sort of follows right beside that IP anomaly.
That's true. It actually goes right down to the Paycore property, the FAD deposit, which is 2.5 kilometers. So we 1.5. That's on our property, and I just think it's such an interesting part of the property, part of the district to be exploring, and it's almost amazing that it hadn't really been drilled in much detail in the years past.
Well, an answer to that is those majors were looking for oxide gold. That's right. They weren't really looking for CRDs or sulfide gold. They were that's why they kind of probably packed up and left.
Yeah, you're probably right. That being said, the Eureka district was a CRD district from 1866 to about 1966. That's the only thing that was mined. Then Homestay came in, and they, to your point, they just started looking for oxide gold mineralization, and then they discovered the Archimedes pit, and that was sort of it for any other CRD type of exploration.
So I'm not the only one that's getting excited about this Eureka camp for CRDs. You guys recently did a $65 million financing, and your next door neighbor Paycore did a $16 million bought deal financing. So in that immediate area, there's been about $80 million of fresh money thrown at you two.
Yeah, it's very good to see them get that financing done. We're obviously a supporter of that company, and our financing was very well received, and we're looking forward to closing that later this month. So it's been quite the excitement in terms of what we're drilling, for sure.
Well, I've been saying for a while now that I think this Eureka camp, the immediate group around you guys, has the potential, led by i-80 Gold, to make this one of the most important exploration camps in all of Nevada.
Yeah, I think you're right. We're definitely onto something, and we've got a healthy exploration budget to sort of grow the property. We're excited.
So you guys are going to be drilling away, I imagine, at Granite Creek and at Ruby Hill. That's
correct. Yeah, I would say the majority of our true exploration type drilling will be at Ruby Hill this year, just given the successes of 2022. And Granite Creek will be more delineating and getting those zones ready for mining would be the goal there.
I bet you old Ewan is not going to let that northern extension go without some holes as well, because that you can't stop when you're going towards a 25 million ounce gold deposit in the same rock, and you're open in that direction and at depth.
I suspect you're probably right in your thinking.
Well, was there anything you wanted to close it off with, Matt?
No, just we've got a real exciting year planned for the exploration program and our development program. So it's stay tuned, and you should see a constant flow of news coming out of us as soon as our rest of our assets start coming into the door. So we're very excited.
Awesome. Let me close it off. We can have a chat at the other end.
Sure. Thanks.
Well, yeah, I really think that I've said this before, that I think i-80 Gold is following a similar path to a young Barrick, but what might be different is I don't think young Barrick had the quality assets that that i-80 Gold has at this stage, apples to apples. When young Barrick was young Barrick. So I really believe that they've set the stage for, you know, building a much bigger company than their current valuation suggests. And for the investor that doesn't wants exposure to gold with less risk, I think this is the perfect candidate for you to do your homework on. And as always, my shows are made for information purposes only. It's important for you to do your homework and speak with your financial advisors. And I'm always pushing that do your homework part because it helps you to make sound, logical investment decisions. And what i-80 Gold does very well is present their news releases and their corporate presentations. Plus, Ewan and I have done a lot of interviews in the past. So there's plenty of information out there for you to do that homework. And I think when you do, you'll start to understand why I'm so bullish and Matt has a smile on his face and you can hardly keep him on the chair when we do interviews. So there you go, folks. Have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.